Hello there everyone and welcome. I am so excited to be here. Hi, I'm Lydia from Altenew and today we're going to be creating this card. It features beautifully coloured layered die cuts with markers and also some beautiful kind of textured background with a 3D embossing folder and a touch of gold. So to start with, I am going to be using a piece of cardstock. This is Classic Crest Solar White and it is a full sheet that I have here. I'm also going to be using the double-sided adhesive from Altenew. I find that this works really well with layered die cuts as it cuts down on the kind of gluing and sticking time at the end. So what I'm doing is I'm just popping this into place onto the back or even the front of the cardstock, and then you can just flip it over and then it's on the back. And I'm just adding that on, just making sure that everything's stuck down beautifully, and then I can just get rid of this little end bit that we have. And I'm just going to trim this off with some scissors. And then you can use this piece of double-sided adhesive just like you would any other one for another project. So I have my double-sided piece here now, and I am going to be using this beautiful die set from Altenew. So this is the Ornate Flowers die set, and I'm going to be cutting out all of the kind of base and second and third layers for each of the images out of this, and I'm going to cut the detail layers out of something else. So you can see that we have 2 layers for the leaves and also 3 layers for the flowers, so I'm just adding those into place onto the double-sided cardstock that we have here. I don't use all of the double-sided cardstock, but that can be used for a separate project as well. So I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine, and you can see all of those images have cut perfectly. Now for the detail parts of the leaves and also the stem, I will be using this beautiful rose gold cardstock from Altenew, and it's kind of a brushed effect that we have on here. So I am going to add the 2 parts of the stem and also all of the little detail parts of the leaves, the veins, and I also ended up later on cutting out the 2 little flower centers, the little circular flower centers from this as well. So this does cut perfectly, but I'm just going to leave that in the kind of sheet just for now, just to keep everything together. Now, because we've cut all of these from white cardstock, we can now color this any color that we want using any medium that you find works best for you. I'm going to be using markers for this one. I do like ink blending, but markers give a really beautiful, vibrant effect as well. So for the base layers of the leaves, so these are going to be the larger leaf images, we are going to be using a kind of combination of yellow. We have the honey drizzle that I'm adding to the base of the leaf, and then the fresh lemon that I'm adding to the tip. And then I'm kind of blending those out to get that mid shade in the center of the base leaf layer. And I'm going to do exactly the same for each of the leaves. So we have 4 different leaves in this set. So for this leaf here, I did a little bit of a different way. I added down that fresh lemon all the way around the outside because we're not going to see the center. You don't need to color that in. And then I'm adding that darker color, the honey drizzle, to the base, and then using the fresh lemon to blend everything together. I do find that using the lighter color to blend is the best way, because if you use the darker color, everything will just turn the darker color. So I recommend that you use the lighter color there. So for the top part of the leaf, or the kind of second layer of it, we will be using a mixture of greens. So I have the mountain pine that I'm adding to the base of the leaf image. I'm then going to go ahead and add in some Shadow Creek to the mid portion, and then the grass field will be the tip. So we're going darkest to lightest on this one. And again, I'm going to be using that kind of lighter color to go in to the other colors to mix everything together. And this is the way that I find really easy. You don't really need to worry too much about getting the blending perfectly. It's still going to look really cool when you kind of put everything together. So don't worry too much, just play around with it, add that color down, throw it down, and get some beautiful shading in just by kind of playing around with it. So I am going to do all 4 of the leaves in the same color. So that's the mountain pine, the Shadow Creek, and also the grass field. So now we have the leaves completed, we're going to move on to the flowers. I'm going to start with the base of the flowers. So this is going to be the largest, less detailed image. And for these ones, I'm going to go with some beautiful pink colors. So I have the razzleberry, that I'm adding to the center there. I'm then going to graduate out or radiate out from that one using a little bit of the Rubelite marker. This is such a kind of juicy color that we have here. And then last but least, around the outside edge, I am going to go with the Pinkalicious. Now, at the minute, the blending does not look great, but don't worry, we're going to use that Pinkalicious marker to kind of blend everything in together. It will saturate the cardstock and give a beautiful blended effect. So the more ink that you add down, the easier it is going to be to blend. It's a great way to kind of add a base layer of color down first and then kind of add a second layer in, and that second layer will blend a lot easier and quicker than the kind of first layer because there's already ink down there. It's just kind of sitting on top of that and then working with it rather than against sticking to the cardstock, which the kind of first layer does. So I am just going to go over with the same colors that I did to add that second layer in and to help me get that really great blend on these kind of flower layers here. But again, I'm not going to worry too much. Most of these will be covered over with the second layer, so you don't need to worry too much there. Okay, so now we're on to the second layer of the flowers. So I'm going to use the same technique that I used for the base layer, and we're going to be using some blues here. So this is the darkest blue that I am going to be using, and I'm putting that at the center or the base of the flower. And this is the Tide Blue Artist Marker from Altenew. I'm then going to radiate out from that one using the turquoise. I just love this color. It's one of my favorites, and it is a beautiful kind of warm blue shade that we have here. Once that has been popped down, I'm then going to go on to the lighter shade, and this is the Sea Breeze. So I'm just going to add this around the outside edge of those kind of flower image layers that we have. Just adding these to the tips of the flowers, and then I'm just going to keep going all the way around just to kind of blend out that color a little. I'm then going to do the same as I did for the base layers. I am going to go over this and kind of get better blending. So don't worry at this point if you're not happy with the blending. We are going to sort that out. So to do that, I'm just going to kind of take that lighter color all the way over the images, and that's just going to really kind of blend and blur those edges where the kind of color goes into the next marker color. And then once I'm happy with those, I'm then going to move on to the third layers of the flowers, and these are going to be orange. So I'm using some marigold for the base or the center. I'm then going to go in with some snapdragon, and then I'm going to use my lighter shade, which is the sunray, just to kind of go over everything and blend everything in together. I just love this orange color. It's so bright and vibrant and does add a beautiful freshness to all of the colors that we have added down here. It's so summer-like. I just love how summerish this looks. I need summer. So as I said before, I am going to cut these little flower centers that I cut out of the white out of the gold as well. I should have done that when I did it before, but I've done it now. I'm then going to add all of the pieces together. I love the fact that we do have the double-sided adhesive already on the back of these, because it means that it's kind of going to cut down on the mess and gluing that you need to do. So I'm just adding in the second layer of the leaves over the first layer, and you will get that kind of edge of that yellow around the outside of the green. It is very, very pretty. And I'm then going to add in the layers to the flowers too. Now, some of these flowers, or actually all of the layers, the second layer of the flowers, have some kind of detail cut out in them. I find that using a little hat pin or pokey tool really, really helps get these pieces out. And I just kind of stick them onto a scrap part of the cardstock that I have, and they adhere really, really well and then don't get in your way. All you're going to need to do is kind of spin these images so they fit perfectly within the pink one that we have, and gives that really cool edge around the outside edge. Once I have all the blue layers, I am going to add in the orange layers too. These are really easy just to pop in place. They don't necessarily need to be perfect for those flower centers. You can just pop them in any way you want. Once that's done, I can remove all of these little pieces from that die cut piece that we have, and you can see just how pretty they look. So now at this point, all we need to do is add in those beautiful details with the rose gold die cuts that we have here. So all I'm going to do is I am going to use a little pokey tool or a hat pin, which I do have here, to kind of poke out these detailed pieces and then pop them into place. So they're just going to go on the center of the leaves, and then the two little flower centers are, like the name suggests, going to go in the center of the flowers. And there we go. All we need to do now is add in the little stem that we have for this flower here. So I'm just popping that into place around the orange piece and just adding that other kind of backing back into place because I don't want to stick this down accidentally. And then add the second layer right on top as well. So I have a card base here. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it's just a white card base. It does open to the side. I want to add a little bit more interest to the background, so I have a piece of cardstock. This is jet black, and it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And what I'm going to do is I am actually going to emboss this. So I'm using a 3D embossing folder from Altenew. And this is the luxurious motif. So I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine and then emboss that piece of cardstock. Now it does look very pretty as it is, but I do want to add a little bit of extra pizzazz to this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Antique Gold from Altenew. This is a pigment ink, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of gently move that around the top. It's like a whisper. You only want to gently touch the kind of top embossing. So we are just whispering that across the cardstock rather than kind of scraping it. So you're just gently, like a cloud, over the top of that cardstock to give the ink kind of room just to touch the top and then just add colour to the top of the embossing rather than the full piece. So once I'm happy with the amount of ink that I have on there, I am going to kind of place that around to see where it's going to look good. I think I'm going to put it on a jaunty angle on the side. So before I adhere that down, I am going to add some of the Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew just on the back, and then I'm going to pop that into place. Any of the overhanging pieces that I have, I am just going to trim from behind, and I do find that a large pair of scissors works perfectly for that one. So once I have my background in place, we can then play around with the placement of these beautifully kind of vibrant flowers that we have here. And for this, I'm just going to stick the leaves down with the adhesive that we have on the back. But then I wanted to pop the flowers up. Now, we do have this adhesive on the back, so to get rid of that, we are going to kind of get rid of the stick. I'm just going to remove the backing, and I'm going to use some talcum powder or baby powder on the back of the adhesive, and that will get rid of the stick. So if you do have anything overhanging, you can always do this little trick just to get rid of that stick there. I can then use some of the Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew to pop those flowers up. Now these leaves weren't sticking down that great onto that embossed image that we have at the back, so I'm just going to add a little bit of wet glue just to keep them in place. So I'm going to do the same trick of getting rid of the stick from the back of the two other flowers that we have here. So you can use your fingers, you can just add it straight onto the back if you want to do, or you can use a brush. Completely up to you how you want to go about that one. Once I'm happy with the stick removal, I'm then going to go ahead and add some Instant Dimension foam tape behind those flowers and then pop them into place. Once that's done, I'm going to add in the leaves. Now, I have 4 leaves, but I don't like adding 4 leaves on a card. I like to have an odd number of leaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that one off and then add that behind another flower, kind of disguising the fact that it's not a full leaf behind the flower. So I find that that really works to kind of stretch the amount of leaves that you have. For my sentiment, I'm using the Sweet Bouquet stamp set from Altenew, and I'm just going to use one of these long strip sentiments that we have here. I love these because it gives the look that you have embossed on some black cardstock in white, but you're just going to use some ink to give that look. So the ink I'm using is the Obsidian ink from Altenew. This is my favorite go-to black ink of all time, and it never leaves my desk. So I'm just going to stamp that onto some white cardstock and then again trim them again using some really large scissors, as this cuts down on the amount of snips that you need to do, so we'll give you a straighter edge. You can play around with where you want this sentiment to go. Once you're happy, just add a little bit of foam tape behind that. I'm using the Altenew Instant Dimension foam tape just to pop this up, and then I can pop that into place. Just going over the flowers, I really feel that this gives a more cohesive look to the whole piece. And here is the card complete. I really do hope that you liked the card and that you've enjoyed the video as well. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share, because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again hopefully very, very soon. We hope you have a beautifully crafty day. See you soon. Bye-bye.